Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're embarking on a deeply sobering but honestly, absolutely crucial journey together. Imagine for a second stepping out of your car, just a quick 5-minute drive from the downtown center of Philadelphia, one of America's most historic cities. But instead of seeing historical landmarks, you find yourself dropping into an American reality that looks, well, relentlessly like a dystopian movie. We are looking at a fast unfolding catastrophe right here at home that has literally shocked observers all over the globe.
Vloggers who have walked these streets to document what's actually going on often come back with the exact same harrowing observation. The whole city is famous worldwide as a zombie town. And man, that is a terrifying moniker. But what's truly staggering about this isn't just the visual, it's the sheer geographical scale. We aren't talking about one isolated bad alleyway or a single city block here. Reports from the ground show this crisis stretching across a massive 5 to 6 kilometer radius. It's just a vast, sprawling zone of despair. Section 1, the chemical evolution. Okay, let's dive into how we actually got here. When we chart the terrifying escalation of drug potency over time, a really grim picture emerges. We start way back in the 19th century with the Opium Wars, right? Opium was basically used as a tool of empire and colonial control. Moving into the 20th century, the world saw the devastating spread of heroin and cocaine, turning addiction into a massive global issue. But then, the 21st century brought something far worse: fentanyl, an ultra-potent synthetic opioid. And yet, incredibly, the chemical evolution didn't stop there. Today, we've arrived at an era defined by a street concoction known as tranq. Every single era brought a more devastating chemical to the streets, and we are currently living in the deadliest chapter yet.
Section 2. What is tranq? So what exactly is in this stuff? The secret ingredient, if you can even call it that, is xylazine. This is a heavy, super powerful veterinary tranquilizer. It's approved strictly for use on large animals. We're talking horses and cattle. It is entirely unsafe and was never, ever intended for human consumption. I really want you to let that sink in for a second. People are injecting a chemical designed to literally knock out a 1,000-pound horse. This highlights an extreme and completely unprecedented level of danger for users on the street today.
But here's the thing. Xylazine isn't acting alone. It's mixed with fentanyl, which acts as the deadly foundation of this whole problem. Fentanyl is a highly lethal synthetic opioid, mostly originating in labs in China and trafficked heavily through Mexico. And the terrifying truth? It is 50 times stronger than heroin. 50 times. To put that into perspective, an amount the size of a few grains of salt can be fatal. It is incredibly cheap to produce and incredibly deadly.
So what happens when you combine fentanyl, this highly lethal synthetic opioid, with this xylazine, a massive animal muscle relaxant? You get a completely devastating synergy. The fentanyl provides the intense, addictive opioid high that users are chasing, while the xylazine acts as a massive depressant. This specific chemical combination is exactly what creates that unresponsive, hunched-over, frozen zombie effect that onlookers are capturing on video. The human nervous system simply cannot process this kind of overwhelming shutdown. It just freezes.
Section 3. The flesh-eating reality.
Now we have to talk about the physical toll. And fair warning, it is horrific. Because xylazine severely restricts blood flow, users who inject tranq develop a condition called necrosis. Basically, this is the premature death of cells and living tissue. It results in open, flesh-eating wounds right at the injection sites. On the ground in Kensington, users are actually walking around with exposed bone and rotting flesh. Without proper treatment to restore blood flow, these wounds quickly turn into severe infections, gangrene, and tragically, they very often require amputation. And the sheer mortality rate here is just staggering. 1,400 fatalities in Philadelphia in the year 2023 alone. Just from this specific crisis. Think about that for a second. It's literally a mass casualty event happening in slow motion inside just one single American city.
Section 4. Trapped in the open market.
The neighborhood of Kensington itself has morphed into the largest open-air drug market in the United States. And what's totally surreal is the absolute lack of concealment. We are talking about drug use happening in broad daylight. Subway stations are overflowing with people setting up tents right there on the platform. The drugs are sold at heavily discounted rates, sometimes referred to on the street as a dollar rock. Entire blocks of businesses are just boarded up because as night falls, the environment becomes incredibly dangerous.
And perhaps most shockingly, vloggers have documented police vehicles parked right there on the street, watching people inject drugs, seemingly too overwhelmed or unequipped to actively intervene. They kind of just watch as the ambulances constantly come and go. This entire environment creates a literal physical trap. As one user noted, people come down here from all over to get it for the cheaper price, but then they get stuck. Kensington exerts this magnetic, inescapable pull. People travel from different cities, even college students, looking for these cheap drugs. But once the physical hooks of Trank take hold, there's no way out. They set up a tent, and they join this growing underclass of lost souls, completely stuck in a continuous loop of addiction.
Section 5. Systemic failure and abandonment.
Behind all these staggering statistics and terrifying street scenes are deeply personal, tragic human stories of individuals who feel entirely abandoned by society. Let's look at a man named John, who was profiled in our source material. John is just 34 years old, but he's been injecting drugs for 18 years, over half his life. He is currently suffering from severe tissue necrosis on his legs. His situation is so unbelievably dire that he has to inject this deadly cocktail every 2 to 3 hours. Not even to get high anymore, just to stave off the violent, uncontrollable vomiting and agonizing withdrawal symptoms that hit the second the xylazine starts leaving his system. When John was asked about his future, he delivered this just utterly heartbreaking realization. I came to the realization that this is going to kill me, and I'm all right with it. I mean, wow. It perfectly illustrates the profound psychological defeat at play here. It is a total, devastating surrender to the drug. He has accepted his own impending death simply because the alternative, going through the physical hell of withdrawal, is just way too much to bear. So you might be wondering, why doesn't he just get help? Well, John says he tried. He tried to go to the hospital 15 different times. His words, "They told me I was a junkie piece of shit and dragged me out by my neck out of the hospital." This exposes a massive, glaring systemic medical failure. Standard hospitals and rehab facilities simply do not know how to treat xylazine withdrawal. It's not like treating a standard opioid addiction at all. Because the medical system is so unequipped, people like John are repeatedly turned away, basically left to rot on the streets. So what is really driving the whole shebang? It's clearly not just about the availability of cheap chemicals. The actual root of the crisis lies in deep-seated, untreated trauma and severe depression. It's this desperate, overwhelming need to escape painful psychological realities. In the sources, a 26-year-old user noted that the very first time he ever saw drug use was right inside his own home as a little kid. These are generational cycles of addiction, right? And they're compounded by a profound lack of adequate medical and social support in what is ostensibly the wealthiest country in the world. Which leaves us with this final, really heavy question. As this deadly chemical crisis inevitably spreads beyond Kensington to other cities, and it will, are we actually prepared to treat the deep-rooted trauma that is fueling this addiction? Or will we, as a society, just continue to look away? It's a tough question for sure, but understanding the stark reality of this epidemic is the very first step toward finding an answer. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I highly encourage you to keep questioning and keep learning about this.